So if you can open up your program that we were working on last week, and I had said I would introduce you to dialog boxes. You know what I'll do? Since I kept saying it dialog boxes, when the time came to write the class, I couldn't remember the class name. So it's better. Dialog boxes are it's more a common term in C#, right? And since I was teaching C#, it's what came into my mind. They are dialog boxes, but in Java, they are instances or objects of the JOption pane class. So I'll kind of change these comments. I mean, it's not the name of the class is not dialog box, it's JOption pane, right? And so that you know. Because I've said class, I would like to use the name that is what it is called in Java. So you can call them dialog boxes. I mean, you'll see today how it's a dialog box, the term that we commonly use, but for Java, we name the class that it is. Is it visible to everybody on all corners of the room? It's clear?
I can see it here. Just maybe make it 1 or 2
size more. Okay, so we were able to find it, I think, under tools, right? Options and fonts and colors, and go maybe, oh, after the 24, it's the 36. We can try that. Okay, better?
Maybe a bit smaller.
Can go. There are two. Oh, I could have. It was a 24 and a 36. I just chose the 36. Okay, there it is.
You know, if you highlight it, you can try to type in a number like 20.
Like 28, yeah. Okay, right? Okay, so please keep in mind that in this class, it's okay for everybody, or is it too big? Is it okay?
It's perfect for me.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
okay.
Plus I made a print screenshot of what we created last time we were here before we started editing.
Okay. So when I'm done and finished with the whole complete program, I'll put it on Blackboard, okay, so that you have it. Please keep in mind that this class necessitates the use of Java doc comments at all times. I need them at the head of the class definition. It will describe the class. It will name the author, and the annotation that I've used, @author, @version, @since, have to be exactly written as such. They just are case sensitive, they are spelling sensitive. Okay, you can't change it. Of course, if you want to, they will just not act as they're supposed to act. Remember, the use of Java doc comments is to create Java documentation. And Java documentation is help for other users who use your class. Okay, and this is a must. Every assignment will have marks for comments, and I decide how much you get. You'll say, oh, I have written enough. I write enough, and if you are not following me, you are not writing enough. And I'm not going to write too much, you will notice. But I want you to follow these Java documentations because you are now in your second course. You can write your single line comments and your block comments if that helps you. And if there is something very complex going on and you need to explain, that's perfectly fine. But this is a must. Okay, so it has to be all written. Yes.
Is it right that my document is still called S2017-Tuesday-Week2? You said that it was okay last time.
It's fine. Whatever you want to name your projects is up to you, right? Names don't matter. Code is important.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that I can.
Okay, so we had written this class called dialog boxes. I won't change its name now because I kept calling it dialog boxes, but that's okay. Remember, every Java application has to have a method called main with exact those signatures. We had talked about those signatures last week. Hopefully you can kind of relate now why main is a static method, why it returns void, because it basically doesn't return anything. It's called by the JVM. It's a class method and it is called by the name of the class. So it's called dialogboxes.main, and that's how the JVM calls it. Okay, we had talked about string variables. String is a class in Java. It comes from the package called java.lang, and we don't have to import that package because by default the java.lang package gets imported automatically, and all classes can be used. A package is nothing but collection of related classes, and the names are not so tough. Java.lang, java.util, java.awt, Java. I mean, you'll get kind of used to it. I mean, you'll say, oh, where do I look for it? And if you can't remember, that's okay. Google and it will always tell you where to look, but you'll get into the habit of, oh, this is the package I need, or this is the class I need. And that's how you will learn, guys. You will have to research and look for information. No teacher can give you 100% information in class because there's so many things, right? So research, work on it.
One of us doesn't always know everything. So No one among us can be 100%.
Oh, nobody, right? Like, but we always learn, and that's what I do too. I learn from you guys. You ask me questions, and then I say, oh, maybe I should look it up, and it always helps me to learn too. Okay, so we also use the scanner class, which I had hoped that you had done in semester 1, and it wasn't too bad. Most of you knew about the scanner class. So before you use a class, you create an object. We created an object called input. As long as you follow naming conventions in Java and give useful proper names, please don't call your variables X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3, doesn't make sense at all. Please see that they have good names. As long as it makes sense, I'm okay with them. So follow naming conventions and write good names. Whether it's a class name, whether it's a method name, whether it's an identifier name, right? So here the main method has two local variables. Those are string and of type string and scanner, called name and input, right? So a scanner object is required if you would like to read input from the user through the keyboard. That's when you require it. So I have kind of associated it with system.in. So I'm saying that system.in, which by default is your keyboard, I'm going to take input from the keyboard. That's what it means, right? And then we did system.out. Remember system.out, you are going to system out printlns or printfs or whatever you are used to or whatever you like are statements. So you're using the class called system, and system.out, out, in, and ed are special variables of this class called system. And system.out basically prints something on the screen. So system.out is the object, and .println is the name of the method. And all you're doing is you're saying, hello, Java programmers, and then you say, what is your name? And you take the name from the user. And how do you take the name? You use your scanner object, and you use a method called next line, which says, I will read everything till the end of the line. So anything, blanks and whatever. If you had said only next, then it would only read a word. So as soon as it finds a break, like a blank or something, it will stop. And then I kind of printed this name on the screen. That's what I did. So I said, welcome and name. Yes.
So I put down a line comment that says input is the object that we created for this program. Would you prefer calling dialog boxes program or class?
It entirely are your comments. You're writing comments for yourself. Whatever makes sense to you, please do. Right?
Well, I'm
Okay.
just trying to make sure that I can interpret these correctly, because
Right.
I have a feeling that we're doing that on paper and more practical work.
As long as the comments are correct and they make sense, that's what I want you to do. So a class should be called a class, an object should be called an object, a method should be called a method, as long as you can remember.
Since my week 1 thing is not the class, I'll just call it class then. Sorry. It's just
Okay.
hesitating every day.
Okay, so every method will have some comments at the head of it. These are the method comments, and notice how again these are Java doc comments. So basically, again, the same criteria follows. You write a short description of the method. Now there is not much to say about the method, kind of a, prevalent method that's just there. But if you would like, you will say this method will run or will execute when the application is run. And this is just for your information. We all know it. And what does it do? So the description is what does it do? So it takes input from the user and displays results. So a short description at the beginning of each method. Okay. Then comes that at param, which basically says now describe your parameters of your method. So it has to be said at param, note params. And as many parameters your method has, you will have to write an at param for each of the parameters. So I only have one parameter in main. That parameter is called args, and it's actually the command line arguments that the user provides. Right? There is no return type. Notice the return type is void. If there was a return, I would have used at return. Okay, so at return, at param, and as many as at params as you have parameters in your methods, and of course there will be only one at return statement because a method only returns one value.
So this basically just sets up the documentation to describe what the method does.
Exactly.
Parameters.
Yeah, right. So at param, at param, at param, at param, at param, as many as you have.
So like if in a normal non-main
Yeah.
thing,
Method.
it would just be like you have int
Yeah.
class 1 or something like that.
Yeah.
You just put that.
Exactly. You will say whatever is the name and int for the age of the person. Something that describes it.
When you add it, do you put the value type you like int?
Not necessarily, it depends on you. So if you look at the, I mean, what will help you? What will help you if you look at the Java documentation, it will kind of tell you how things can be done. And that's how you learn, right? Uh-oh. So what you're doing here will produce Java documentation. And if you kind of go to any class, like let's look for string, just because string is a known class to you. And if you click on any method, like any method, let's do a compare to. Notice how it gives the signature, and then here is the description. Shane, here is the description, and then here is your params. So it says another string, the string to be compared. So it mentions the type. Sometimes it will and sometimes it will not. And then it says what does it return. So this parameters is coming from the at param, coming from the at return, right? And this is your description. This is coming from the description. This is all coming from what you write. So they have said the string mostly. It really, sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So it's not a big deal. I usually am in the habit of saying a int. And though it's kind of extra because when you're writing code, you can see the type right here, right? You can see the type right here. So you can avoid it. It's not a necessity. So it's kind of.
It's for like other people though, right? Or,
yeah. I mean, it's more for people who may, and don't try to use terms that may not make sense. Like,
yeah.
That's all you have to remember.
So there's
Yes.
no harm in actually just
No, there's no harm at all. Many people do it. And I remember I used to do it too as a programmer. An int for this, a float for this, a decimal for this. I would also always mention the type. And array of strings. So I would say it. Okay? Yes.
So I'm on docs.oracle.com for the Java 8 overview, but how do you get to the compare to?
I searched for the class called string. I searched for the class called string, and in the string, there was this method, and I came to it. You will have to come and see me after class, Brad, so that I can kind of clarify things for you, because I can't keep stopping for small things in class, right? Otherwise, we'll never get things done.
I'm just trying to follow.
Yeah, you can, but then you have to try outside the class too, right?
I didn't use the overview last time, but I stick with NetBeans and follow them all.
Okay, let's come back then, right? So now, so we've learned how to use the scanner class, and we've learned how to use the system of class of methods or the object, and you know how this works. So our next job now, I said I'll teach you how to do a little bit of GUI. So instead, I mean, there's nothing wrong in it. You're taking input from the keyboard, you're showing output on the keyboard, on your terminal. Not bad, console input and output, which is okay, which is fine. As you progress, you will see that working with console is not the only way, and actually is not the most favorite way of how programmers and users would like to interact. Users like to interact with GUI, right? It's the word of GUI. Everybody understands GUI. It's all GUI now. So in the advanced course, you will do GUIs in detail. As and when I need something, I'll use it. I don't know. I had thought I would do some GUI as I go on, but again, since the parameters are a little different of what's going on in class and how much I have to do, let's see how we go. But this is a small one, and I'll introduce it. Yes.
Scroll up just for a second here, so I want to make sure I got it.
Right. Okay. So now let's use this class to create. So if I have to take input from the user using a dialog box or using a option pane, as it is called in Java, what will I need? If I have to talk to the class and I say take input from the user, not from the keyboard, when you wanted it from the keyboard, you use the scanner class. When you wanted to show something on the terminal, you use the system class. So now if I want to take input from the user in a component, a GUI component, some class, right?
FXML file?
No, not FXML file. We're not going there. We're not doing GUI with FXML files at all, right? That's not in our course. That's okay. You can do it that way, but we're not doing that. That's not in our course. We're not even there yet. So I'm going to use a class called JOptionPane in Java. I'll create an object of it, and then I'll use methods in that class to take input from the user and show output to the user, right? So you'll say, oh, how do you know? Because I've done it before. So how will you know? You can always Google and say, not from the keyboard, or take input in Java. So it will kind of give you ideas, okay? And that's how you learn. Okay, so what do we need? we'll need a object of type J option pane. Right, as soon as I say it comes with a red squiggly, it says I don't recognize that, because what do you think is the obvious reason? What? Yeah, imported. So it's not in the java.lang. If you bring your mouse over it and it will, and you do an alt enter as NetBeans tells you, like Eclipse, if you bring your mouse over it, it will show you the errors right away. But again, J option pane says do an alt enter, and it says add import for javax.swing. So the class J option pane belongs to the package javax, standing for Java extended. When the swing class was introduced, instead of putting it in java.packages, it was put in javax.swing. So what is this swing package? The swing package consists of GUI components. When Java started version 1, we used to use AWT, Abstract Window Toolkit. That was the package for GUI, right? Quite cumbersome, but that's what it was. They introduced swings, I think 3, if I'm not mistaken. Java 3 came with swings, if I'm not mistaken, because they realized AWT is a little tough or not, is cumbersome. So the swing package was introduced, and they put it in a package called javax for Java extended. For whatever reason, I have no clue. And then again, swing is a better form, has better look and feels, gives you more option and so on. And again, for GUI classes, right? So if you would like to create objects which you can use in GUI, that's the swing. And now it has been kind of, GUI has also become old now, and now the most latest trend is, of course, scene builder, right? So basically Java FX. So Java FX was introduced, and that is where now GUIs are written, and the GUIs are saved in Java FXML, extended language, markup language. It's called FXML, right? So if you have heard of XML, this is FXML. I've tried so many times to find out what is F standing for, and I've tried why did they call it Java FX? No idea. Right? I don't know why they called it Java FX. But anyway, so the third version, the third try of improving GUI in Java, making it easier. When I say improve, it's making it easier for the programmer, right? So the Java FX was introduced, and again, in the beginning, it was still not standardized in the sense if I used a different IDE, the class that was created for the GUI, right, it was not kind of portable from one program to another. Now with Scene Builder, what Scene Builder does is you can kind of drag and drop, and it produces the same code irrespective of the software you're using, whether you are using Eclipse, whether you are using NetBeans, whether you are using IdeaJ, right? Whatever you're using, it produces the same code. So it makes it easy. So that's why we'll go on to use, or you will, I don't know what the advanced teacher who teaches advanced will do. I think Jared teaches it next semester. And of course, I know he uses Scene Builder. So hoping. So when you go to Java, do your advanced next fall, please guys, I don't want to listen any crying. You all have to have Java on your tips, at least the concepts, right? So see that you make them clear before you leave my class. So we'll say import it. And you know what? You don't have to do it this way. You could always import it before even you start. But we are all lazy, right? We say, okay, it will tell us, and we'll just do a click. So there it is. So notice how this was included, and then this was imported. Now, if you like, the other option is you can always kind of put a star here. What does star represent? Star represents import all the classes from this package called javax.swing. Nothing wrong in it, but you're kind of telling, I need all the classes. So if you only say one, if you only go with one, it exactly knows the class you will use. If you go star, you have the option of doing anything. So if you're lazy, you don't want to mention the class name, go ahead and put star. But programmers will make it a point to put their class names because it's specific, right? It tells me you know what you're talking about. So try to inculcate good habits rather than lazy habits, because in the long run, you have to be a programmer. You can't be lazy, right?
So you prefer to stick with J option?
Yes, you will stick with writing the class name after the package name when you do your import statements. I would prefer it. Are there any marks for it? No. Nothing. Yes.
The FX is, I think it originates in like cinema and whatnot, special effects, and it's literally just a shortened version of the word effects. Like special
Effects. Okay. You know what? Since Java FX has come out, I've been trying to find out what does it stand for. Like AWT is.
Doesn't stand for anything.
Yeah, and I'm saying FX, and now that you say effects, it's making so much sense.
It's like like a longer word and a keypad.
Ah, okay, makes sense now. Right, so it's always bugged me. Why did they call it JavaFX? Why did they call it, like, even with swings, I don't know why they called it swings. The AWT was abstract window toolkit, made sense. But then swings, and I said, I don't know what JavaFX stands for. And I did search for it when it came. Makes sense. Thanks, Shane. Effects, kind of, yes? JavaFX, like effects, yes.
I did a Google search too. According to some websites, at least like Overflow, it most likely stands for Java Special FX.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And I never kind of Googled that. I was trying to look inside Java manuals and if they could tell me what the full form was. I never even went and Googled commonly. I said, it should say somewhere in the manual, or does it mean? Oh God, that's good to know. Okay. Okay, so let's go with J option pane. Now you can call it whatever you like. I'll call it dialog box just because dialog box all the time. Okay, you can stop right here if you like, and you can go to the next line. You don't have to create, you don't have to instantiate, you don't have to create the object where you declare it necessarily. You don't. You could write it in a different line. But remember, this is just a declaration. You're saying, I will need an object. Have you asked for it? No. You don't, unless you ask for it, you cannot work with it. So how do you ask for it? You go with new. You call the constructor of the class. So to create an object, you call the constructor of the class. And how do you call the constructor? You go with the reserved value. I'll come back. I have to go on, right? So you can do it right here if you like. It's up to you. I mean, again, programmers do it different way. They will just declare their variables and they'll do the new afterwards. Whatever works for you. It's not as if there is a convention. So what do you need? You will have to call the constructor. And we all know that the constructor of a class is named the same as the name of the class. We all know that. The constructor's name, it's a special method. It's just special because it does a special job, creates an object. But the name of a constructor is always the same as the name of the class. Okay. So you go J option pane, and now we'll say, oh, what do we do? Can we just do this? So again, will this constructor work? Again, nobody knows. Like you're doing a hit and a trial. I did a hit and a trial and it worked. But otherwise, you will go to the help. Like I opened here, you will look for J option pane.
So since it didn't call my dialog box, it has to be the name that I gave the class.
No, not necessarily at all. It's just an identifier. You can call it whatever you like. Okay, as long as I said the names are meaningful.
Looks like it's working for dialog box after all. After I finished typing the line code. Sorry, just keep popping up. Can't help but ask.
Okay, so the class is called J option pane. It extends J component. We'll talk about it. Look at the long hierarchy of it. The option pane is coming from the J components. Components means the English word component, right? A part. The component is coming from container. This is inheritance. Inheritance means it has its own and takes some methods from its parent. Everybody's parent is object. We all know that. So this is called a hierarchy tree, kind of. It says J option pane is a class that is inheriting from J component, that is inheriting from container, that is inheriting from Java AWT container, which is inheriting from object. So notice at the head, you will still find all AWT classes because that's how it started. But down the hierarchy, they made it easy for the user. And so they still inherit from there. So new code was written, which was inheriting, taking everything from classes that exist. Top, you will always find java.lang object. So if you come down here, there are many things they'll show you, and I will use some. We won't be able to use all of them. It tells you can show an error message on the screen, you can show an information, and anything in caps is constants. So this class has some constants, this class has some constructors, of course, this class has some methods, right? So we'll learn as we go on. So here are the fields. Fields, yes.
So which direction is the inheritance again?
From bottom to top.
So
Object is at the head. Keep that in mind so you will remember.
Component, inherits container, inherits component,
Yes.
inherits object.
Yes. Object is at the head of every. That way, keep that in mind so you'll never go wrong.
Yeah,
Object
so
is at the head.
inheriting is bottom to top.
Right. So here are some constants of this class, and notice all constants are written in caps. So when they kind of started, Java in the beginning constants were not written in caps. So some classes may have constants that are written in all small. But now the convention is, so notice how there is a small one. So now the convention is that all constants are written in caps. So there are constants of this class. So we'll use them. If I can, I'll show you how to use them. if we need to today. And then here are fields inherited. So that's what inheritance is. It says I've inherited all these fields from J component. So there were some constants which were in its parent, it inherits automatically. You can use all these constants too with that object. And it further got these from the AWT components, right? So these are fields. And then comes constructor. There is a constructor which says creates a J option pane with a test message. And then there are more. It creates an instance, displays a message using the plain message. So you can give a message if you want. There is a message and a message type and so on. There's so many options. And I'll show you how they differ. So if I give a message, it will come up somewhere. You can give an icon. It will show up an icon. You can show an icon in your message boxes. Right? Message boxes are just like dialog boxes that come up. You encounter them so many times in Windows, right? They come up so many times in Windows. That's what this is. So it has a plain one, then it has, you can give a message, then it says you can give a message and a message type. That means you can say what the type is. Then you can give an option type and you'll say, what are these message types and option types? All that you were seeing, those constants, they kind of define your types. Okay, so let's see how it works. We'll start with the simplest and then we will go on. Okay, and then there will be methods. And in methods, you'll have to kind of make a, an educated guess. If I want to read something, what will I do? I'll have to kind of maybe look for a method that lets me read. If I want to show a message, what should I do? And so on. It will kind of help you as you go on. And NetBeans also helps you. Okay, NetBeans also helps you. Look at this, show confirm dialog. If you only want to show a dialog box which says yes, no, cancel, you can do it via show confirm dialog. If you want to take input from the user, it should be something which says input, like something that has the word input in it. Not always, but I mean, I'm trying to guess. I know it, but I'm trying to guess so that you can guess with me. To show a message dialog box, there should be some show method, right? See here, it shows an input dialog here. So this is how this method is used. So if you click on it, and again, it has so many options. Remember, when you see the same name, show input dialog, show input dialog, show input dialog, please notice that they have different parameters. This is called overloading in Java, right? When you have the same method name used more than once in a class, then it's called overloading. Why did they do this? Not to confuse the user, to make it easy. If I want to say hello, I mean, it remains hello, but maybe I want to say hello there, hello you, kind of. So what did they do? They gave it a common name, show input dialog, and then the parameters are different. Maybe you want to show an icon, maybe you want to show a question mark, whatever, right? So they have different options. So again, notice there is a show input dialog which says component, parent component, and a message. So this is the easy one which I'll use, but you can also show an initial selection value and say, well, how do I use it? Click on it. Go here. It will tell you shows a question message dialog. So it kind of shows a question message, a question being asked, requesting input from the user, parented to parent component. Now, what is a parent component? If I was creating a big GUI, maybe I would have a container or a frame outside or something. Here, it's just something that will come up, and who's my parent? My own window. Window is my parent. So you will use null here. It will tell you somewhere when to use null. Okay. From the user, the dialog is displayed on top of the component's frame and is usually positioned below the component. So if you were using a container and you were showing the dialog box inside it, then that becomes the parent. So when you start working with GUI, this will make more sense. Okay. So the parent component of the dialog, the object to display, and it throws headless exception. We'll talk about exceptions maybe today itself. And it says, okay, also see what this is. So this is something that kind of looks interesting. Now this is the same method. It just added another parameter. It says the value used to initialize the input field. So if you want to initialize it with something like, what is your name? You wouldn't like to initialize that field. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Which semester number? So maybe you'll give a default value of 1. So 1 will appear. If the user is okay with 1, he'll do an okay. But if not, he'll erase it and put a 2. So sometimes if you want to show default values, you can use this method, right? This overloaded method. And there are more. There is a message type. Let's see what this message type and string is. The string to display in the title bar. If you would like to show a title in the title bar, which is a good idea, because otherwise it will just say input, I think, by default. You can give it this message type. It says the type of message that is to be displayed. Is it an error message? Is it an information message? Is it a warning message? What happens? You will see that an icon will appear. If it's a question mark, if it's a question message, a question mark will appear. It makes it interesting. So you can use any. I'll show you how to use a couple and we'll go from there. Okay, so we'll use this. Okay, so let's do that now that we know. Now I want to ask a question of the user, what is your name? That's exactly what I want to ask. But instead of asking it through the scanner, I want to ask it through my dialog box. So what I'll do is I'll kind of go this, I'll comment it out. We won't use the scanner because we'll have to give it twice, but we'll use another way of doing it. We'll say name is assign the value. Now use your dialog box object. Instead of input, now use the dialog box, do a dot. And kind of we have an idea of what it is. We'll go show, right? We haven't even started here. And we said show input. Why isn't it helping me now? It's not helping. It would be nice if it would help me, right? Oh, it's a static method. That's why it's not helping me. That means you use it with J option pane. You don't use it with an object, you use it with the class name. It's a static method. So therefore it wasn't helping me. So when it doesn't help, kind of think, why is it not doing what it has to do? Okay, so we'll go J option pane. It's a static method. Remember, static methods are called by their class names. Dot show, and here comes the whole list. So you'll say, oh, which one do I need? Show input dialog is making sense because remember we said it helps you to read input from the user. So now which one to use? We'll use the first one first, right? Then I'll show you how you can add an initial value. Then I'll show you how you can add a message if you want, and so on. If you want to kind of start with a different one, it's entirely up to you. So if you want to start with message, I don't know what there is. There is an int here. There is a title here. Maybe with the title one. Let's try with the title one. So select this one. Right, I created an object. Maybe I don't even need it if all methods are static, but who knows, right? So I'll keep it there. Okay, so now it says, what do you want to show, right? So now remember, there were 4 parameters, and if you can't remember, then the easy way is to kind of go here, and this is the one I'm using. Right, I picked up this one because you could give a string to it. You could give a title to it. I picked up this one because you could show an icon with it. So that's why I picked up this one. Okay, so it needs 4 parameters. The container where you want to show it. Since I don't have any container, I can use null. Okay. The message you want to show, what is your name? The title you want to give to your dialog box. If you say I don't want to do this one, then we'll use another one. We can use this one, the simple one. Right, so if you want to try this one, we can try this one. We can say null and the message. So you'll learn it. Don't worry. And what is the? Sorry.
So we're doing one with 3 variables.
These are not called variables. These are called arguments. Right. A method takes arguments.
Right. So it's just a slash input direct. So which one do you prefer? 3 methods?
There are no prefers. It depends upon your use. Which one do you want to use? Right. So I'm trying to say, I'm only going to show this one. It's a simple one which says, it will only say what is your name. Let's see the default one. This is the default. This is the easiest. Let's see how it looks, right? And whatever you give me, whatever the user will give me will go into name. By default, the return type of this method is string. That's the return type. So what it gives you is a string. Where can you save it? You can save it in a string box. Is name a string box? Yes. So you can save it in string, in name.
So we're using that one.
I'm using this one, the one with 2 parameters, right? You can use the 2 parameters one, you can use the 3, you can use the 4. It depends upon what is the requirement of your assignment or your application. Okay. Okay, so let's try to use this one because this looks easy. Let's see if it works. Instead of scanner, now I have used this message dialog box. Okay, let's try. Run it and see what will happen. There is your dialog box. You see? So instead of now giving your input on the keyboard, I'm not taking, and we'll remove this. Notice something, I forgot to remove this right ln. I removed the scanner, but I forgot to remove. So what is your name is still coming here, which is untidy. I don't want it here, right? So where was it? Where did it go? Did I close it? Sorry? No, I'm trying to look where my dialog box went. That's strange. Maybe there it is. There's the dialog box, right? Please notice a few things by default. Do you notice the title bar? It says input. Not bad, but if it would say input name, could be better. Or a small title, right? Input is not bad, but input what? So we can say input name. You'll say, but the question is already there. What is the name? Yeah, that makes sense too. Or you could give something like input, anything, but you can change this title bar. We'll learn how to change it. Notice how it is giving a question mark. That's the default icon that will come. You can change that too. You can change that. It's all available. And then here is your question, the message you gave. And notice you have two buttons, OK and cancel. Makes sense. I mean, what else do you need in an input? I mean, it's not, you will give the input and do an OK, or you will do a cancel, right? So please give your input. I'm giving my name. It's expecting a string. Even if you give a number, it will convert, it will assume it's a string. So you can't do math with it. You will say, then it's useless. I can only take strings. We'll learn how to do that. Not a big job. We'll take a string and we'll convert it into a number. We know how to do that and do an OK. And notice, if you go back to NetBeans, I said, please display it here. Welcome Anju Chawla. Remember this system.out.println? It works, right? Now this what is your name was looking odd. So now since we don't need it, we can comment that out. See how easy it is? Right? And now if you don't, I mean, it's kind of, don't mix and match. You're taking some input from a GUI component, you're showing your output on the screen. So can I show output in a dialog box? I'm sure we can, right? Let's try it. So what do you want to do? You again want to go J option pane. And again, oh, you know what? It's better just to double check. Is it a static method or is it a, so there was a show input dialog. There is a show message dialog. There it is. It's again a static method. Returns nothing. So that means you don't have to assign it to anything. If a method returns a value, you have to catch it. So put it in a variable. Put it in a box. If it doesn't return a value, you need it. I mean, you cannot catch it. But if a method returns a value and you don't catch it, you don't put it somewhere, it's lost. Java won't complain. It said, you don't know how to use a method, that's your problem. Some other languages will say, oh, you don't know use a method, you're doing something wrong. The syntax is wrong. But Java doesn't do it. It just ignores it. It says, you asked, I called the method, it returned a value. You didn't bother to save the value, it's gone. Don't ask me where it went. So therefore, I saved the name in a name variable. But in a J option dialog, notice it says, show message dialog, give the component and give the message. Right? Again, are there more overloaded methods? Oh, I can see a string and I can see an int type. Right? So what is this int type? The message type. Here it is. The type of message to be displayed. Let's try it. What is it? It has some constants. Here it says I need an int, and here it says they're constants. So now there is, you'll say, how do I know if I want to say error message, can I say error message? Yes, programmers prefer to write error message than the value 1. They prefer to write information message instead of value 2. You will say, who will know what is 1, what is 2? It will tell you somewhere in the manual. Okay, it will tell you what is the value. So if you like, I can show you this one. So let's try this one. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We have 4 parameters. Kind of remember their sequence. If you can't, it's not a big deal. We can always come back. So let's go back here. Let's use J option pane dot show message dialog. Right, so there they are. It says, so now it kind of helps you because my font is so big, I can't read the whole thing. But if you're working on your laptops and your font is small, you can see all the parameters. So you don't have to keep going back to the manual. If you know how to use, like NetBeans will help you too. Or whatever ID you are using, it will help you. So it says, okay, I'll use show message dialog. I'm not sure because remember I said I'm using NetBeans for the first time. So, okay, so it picked up the first one and it kind of shows it there. In Eclipse, it will tell you the type right here. So I don't even have to kind of think about it. Like it will be right here. What it has done is it's kind of made it has made its own decision. Since dialog box is a component, it put it here. It's a component, so it just put it here. And then since name is a string, it put it here too. But that's not what I want. So it's kind of more work for me. But anyway, I'll again say null because remember, for me, I don't have a container. And what would you like to do? We'd like to say this message welcome name. That's a string. Right? And we'll kind of comment this out. We'll show our message now in a dialog box. And I'll show you how you can change things. Remember, I said you can give it a title and you can give it a type. Let's look first and then we'll change so that you can kind of see what is required. So there is no preference here. Anju, what do you prefer? The question will tell you what I'm asking of you. Okay, so let's try. Let's run it. Let's give your name or whatever. Do an OK. And notice how it says welcome Anju. Do you notice the icon there, the I? It's for information. And do you notice what it says on the title? Message. So if I wanted to change it, let's try changing it. Remember there was a third parameter, do an okay. There's a third parameter. The third parameter was title. Do you want to give it a title? Instead of message, if I want to say welcome, or I want to say, I don't know, I've already said welcome, so I don't know, hello maybe, I don't know, something like that. Or we can say welcome message. And it was a string, which I forgot. There it is. That was my third parameter. Remember? And then there was a fourth parameter also. There was a fourth parameter also. It doesn't like this. It says, something is wrong. And if you bring your mouse over it, it will tell you no suitable method found for null string. So it is saying, I can't find a method that has 3 parameters. Something is wrong. There wasn't any. It had 4 parameters. What was your fourth parameter? The fourth parameter wanted you to use a constant there. So you can use a number if you like, but using these constants that are automatically converted into numbers is better. So if you wanted to, I mean, warning message doesn't look to be good. Question message doesn't look to be good. Plain message will not show anything. It won't show the I. For us, the I is what it was showing, and that's good enough. But like if it wasn't an information message, and I'll just show you how it works. I'll show the plain message. So who will know what these constants stand for? Somewhere in the manual it will tell you. Somewhere up there it will say what constants can you use. 1, 2, 3, 4. Somewhere it should. I think there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But anyway, who wants to? It's better just to. So I'll kind of put it here. So you can. I didn't like it. Symbol, location, cannot find. Oh, do you know what I'm missing? It's a constant which belongs to the class. We'll have to say J option pane dot plain message. It's because it's a static variable. Remember, static. There. So there are int methods. I don't know, somewhere it will tell you what this int is. See, I can't see it, but I'm sure you can. Okay, so this is what I've done. I've added 2 more parameters to my method call. It will now show a welcome message instead of, it was saying message up there, it will say welcome message. And I've made it a plain message, though it's not a, like, I want to see the I, but I'm just showing you how to make it a plain message. And if you can remember what we did last time without these 2 parameters. It's not a method, it's a constant I'm using. The method remains the same.
So just plain message, no abort, no cancel,
no nothing. Why would we do that? That's show confirm dialog. This is show message dialog. Right? Notice the title has changed. It has become welcome message from message. Right? And notice how the icon has gone, which is kind of looking odd. But so if I didn't want this, what would I do? I would use the information message, which was the default also. But unfortunately, there is no default once you start using the overloaded method if you want to show a string. So the only way where if you want to show a different, like if you want to use a different title, then you will have to give the 4th parameter. Like you can say, oh, can't you use the default that you were using? No, it cannot. You'll just have to follow rules. Okay, now try it again. So I've changed my option to information message. So you could use an int here, and it's not that tough. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Give it a try. Hit and try, but names are more meaningful. 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it starts from 0. Thank you. So it starts from 0, not from 1. So as they are written is 0, 1, 2. You can use it if you like. There is nothing wrong in it. I prefer to go this way because it makes more sense. Right? It has a name now. Why do we create constants? I hope you understand. Why do we create constants? If I use a constant 0.13 in my code for tax rate, it makes less sense. There are 2 uses. It makes less sense. If I declare a constant tax rate and I assign it 0.13 and I use that named constant everywhere, it makes more sense. Right? Anybody who's reading your code says, oh, that's the tax rate she's talking about. And the second important use is that you can change the value. Suppose you were using this tax rate 0.13 10 times in your code. So it's 0.13 10 times. Now you've given it a name and you are using tax rate everywhere. Suppose the tax goes from 13% to say 15 now. You only need to make the change at one place where you have declared the constant. Change its value there. So use named constants wherever you can. So what is a named constant? A constant that has a name whose value will not change in your code. You can't make everything a constant, of course, and you cannot change its value. So anything that makes sense, the value of pi in a math application, the value of tax in an accounting application. See if there are some constants that can be defined and declare them as constants. And that another advantage is of you can make them static also. So you can go static final and then the constant. What will static do? There is only one constant that all objects can share. And that makes sense. Why? Because if it was not a class constant, then every object will have a copy of it. Does it make sense? No. If it's a constant, nobody can change it. All objects can use it. Why don't I make it a class constant? So go static final, private static final, and then the name of the constant all in uppercase is equal to and the value you want to give. That's how you declare constants in Java. Okay. Okay. Having said that, let's try this one. So give your name. It's just caps because my caps was on, and there it says. That's the information that was coming before also, which was the default. So it says if you're trying to use show message dialog, you're giving some information. Those kind of is used. That's the default. What does it say? Try to read errors and figure them out because that's how you will learn. What does it say? It says exception is read. There is something wrong at line number 44. Okay, so let's click on that line. Java 44. Click on that. There. Okay, so the error is like, what is it say? The option page like show message null, comma, runtime exception, uncompatible source code. Okay, so this is not code. This is to do with your something with your configuration. Sometimes what we can do, we can go to the run. Okay. And then say build project, clean and build project. Next one. Yeah. The problem is not with your code. The problem is coming from an implementation from NetBeans. Because you see there are errors everywhere from your project. What kind of project do you create? Was it a Java project? I don't see a different symbol from mine. Do I see the same symbol? Yeah, we see the same symbol. Yeah, but it has something, it has a problem somewhere. And it's in everything, in all your projects. When you see okay, because it's nothing to do with the code. Try closing the opening. Bring your mouse on the next. Yeah, and then try it or close NetBeans. Something to do with NetBeans. It's not a Java error, but something is causing it. So we will have to find out what it is. But I can't see it right away. It's not the syntax. It's something else. Okay, it's not the syntax. Okay, are we okay with this?
No,
Yes.
I need some help. I don't know why, but I typed in the information message. But when I do the output, did you want us to do our own names again or just their first name in all caps?
Doesn't matter. It's what you input is what will be shown. It's only showing what you gave it. How does it matter what you do? Whether it's caps, whether it's full name, whether it's last name. The thing here is you are taking input from the user. You are putting it in this variable called name, and you are spitting it out. That's all. Doesn't matter how you give it, right? Whether you give your full name, whether you give your half name, it will read everything that you give, and it will spit it out.
Well, there's no syntax errors and I'm doing the right thing. So far, this is similar to what we did before the information message.
Yeah, this is okay. What's wrong with it? What do you think is wrong with it?
I don't know, but from the way you were talking and other people are coming from.
Why are you listening to other people's problems? You stay with your problems.
Sorry.
Okay, it's running. Your program is running.
Okay, so there's something wrong.
No.
I'm just trying to understand this.
Do you see anything wrong here? Do you see any red? So why are you worried about why another student's program?
No, it's just, I'm just trying to follow along.
Yeah, so let's do it. Don't worry about others, okay?
So
They have their own problems. I'll figure them out for them. You don't panic about it. You're doing okay. As long as you can see. So just understand what you're doing. That's what is important. You're reading something from the user. That's something you're storing in name, and then you're spitting it out. That's all. Okay. Now do something for me. Take 5 minutes to do it. Read a number from the user, and I want you to store it in a numeric variable. Let's take what's your age. Right? Let's take what's your age. Though you'll say you don't do any math with age. Maybe I'll do. I'll say what's your age, what's your dad's age, and then I'll find the difference. So don't worry about what will I do with it. But I want you to take input from the user and save it in this variable age. How will you do it? I have declared a variable called age. All of you declare it too. Right? Declare this int variable called age. Ask the age from the user. So we can do something like this. Right? So you're going to ask the age from the user. But I want this to go into the variable called age. And it will, and what is your age, we'll ask. So that means I'm expecting an int. That's what I'm expecting from the user. But we just saw that this method returns a string. Can you save a string object in an int variable? No. But what can I do to that string to put it in an int variable? Is there something that is available? Are you aware of methods or classes that are available that allow you this interchange?
Percent.
Parseint, okay. Which class does it belong to? Int.
Yeah.
Int. Okay, try that. So use parseInt method of the int class to convert what the user has given, assuming he will give a number. Now, if he gives Anju and then says convert it into an int, of course it will blow up, right? But assuming, we learn all this exception handling, we can't assume anything. The user is there to break your code. We'll always remember that. The user will never follow instructions. We'll always assume that. And then we write defensive good program. But for now, we will assume that the user will input an integer. And then we want to convert this integer into this string into, we have to do it. Bring your mouse over it. And oh, I keep forgetting that I'll have to do an alt enter. It says, I can't find this age. What's going on? Like, what have you done? Do you want to create a class called age? Or it would be better if it would say something, oh, okay, it's saying this because of something else, guys. The error is coming because of something else. It was outside the brackets. That's what I'm saying. It's not good, giving a good error message. Now bring your mouse over it. Do an alt enter. And it will say incompatible types. Make sense? The right-hand side is returning a string. It's a method that is returning a string. There is no magic, guys. It's all understanding. This method returns a string. We saw it returns a string. Where are you? Show message dialog returns a string. There it is. We'll just take. Look at its return. Sorry, input dialog. It returns a string. Show input dialog returns a string. And I'm trying to put the string into what? Into an int variable. Of course it won't work. And when you bring your mouse over it, it says incompatible types. Oh God, alt enter, incompatible types. Okay, so let's try this. And we heard an answer saying, let's use the parseInt method from the integer class to convert this into an int. So it is a static method, belongs to the, doesn't like it. Oh, it takes a string. Yeah, but that's what is coming out of the G option pane. What isn't it like? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yep, of course, there is no capital because that's not the convention, right? And that's why conventions are so important, guys. Therefore, always in all your Java programs, please follow conventions like their rules. Because the Java library follows all these conventions. And it makes your life easy, right? I said parseInt, I wasn't even thinking, I made P a capital. But see, people who know the conventions pointed it out saying your P is capital. The method is parseInt, follows camel case convention. Method names follow camel case convention. Class names follow Pascal naming convention. Variables identifiers follow Java, the camel case convention. So parseInt is a method. So now it's okay. It's not giving me any red squiggly. So it says, okay, I'm okay now because you gave me a string. I'll convert that string into a, and you know what? It's always a good habit of kind of, it saves some nonsense errors. So always when you kind of open a method or open a class, just put comments at the end of the closing brackets, because closing brackets are a menace. Sometimes there are so many that you can't figure out who's who. So as you write methods, always put these comments. Is it the class ending? Is it the method ending? And then of course, to show you that it works, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to say you can write your string right here, or you can always put it in a message, like in a, if you want, I'll use a variable called message, or I can use the input variable. Remember that I have a variable of type input, and you can kind of format your string if you like. Again, just showing you different ways of doing it, right? I'm going to format my string, and I'm going to format this. How do I use a string format? It needs what? Wait. Okay, it says name and args. Okay, so name is a string. It's the format string, and okay, so I'm not sure. I haven't used string.format for a while, but I'm assuming %d. And then what do you want to show here? Age. I think this is the way you do it. No, doesn't like it. Yes, like, no, doesn't like it. Incompat cannot be converted to scanner. Okay. When you haven't used something for a while, then you have to look it up. It's always a good idea to look it up. I'm using string.format method. Okay, I know that's how you format it, but I don't remember how you format it. There it is. Oh, was I using a capital F again? String format returns a formatted string using the specified format strings and arguments. Okay, so did I make that silly mistake again? No. So what is going wrong? Why doesn't you are using input again? No, that doesn't matter. No, as input is just a variable which you can use as many number of times as you like. It's a string variable, right? Oh, input was not a string? Sorry, it was called name. Oh, my mistake. Yes, I was using the wrong variable. I thought it was called input, but it was called name, and I wouldn't like to call it name here. Name is not a good name, right? So I'll call it message, and I'll declare another string variable message. Thank you. I was putting it wrong. Like I was thinking input was a string variable. Of course, it's a scanner variable. And the poor guy was telling something about scanner, and I'm saying, what is he trying to say? It was saying you're using a scanner variable. So I've put it in a message. What it does is it kind of makes it, you can use that variable here. I mean, if it makes it a little neater, and two, you can format it as you like. This is a simple one. It just says your age is %d stands for integer, and I've said this is what I want to show. If it was a bigger message with lot of floats, I wanted to show my floating point numbers with 2 places after decimal, so on and so forth. If I had a lot of formatting, it's better to put it in a variable and then put the variable. It makes it a little easy. That's all, right? It just makes it a little easy. And now you also know of the format method. If you didn't, it belongs to the string class, is a class method. So I went string.format, and I formatted my string and I used it here. I didn't have to. I could have just said message is equal to your ages plus a name. I could have done it that way. Just showing you as much as I can in this small example. Now it will show this message. I haven't used any title with it. I haven't used any icon with it. I just call it icon because it comes as an icon, as a picture. So it will only say message on the top, right? So I've just used this one just so that you become familiar with all these small things. What is your age? Now, if I make a mistake, it's going to be wrong. But if I give an integer, even a negative integer, which is not right, but an int is an int, right? So I'll kind of go right. Your age is 30. Right? So notice how the title has not changed because I didn't change it, and how the icon hasn't changed because I didn't change it. It has by default an OK button. Right? So that works. But this will also work, which is kind of odd, because age can be negative, cannot be negative, but we didn't take care of it. So you know what? It's not that smart. Remember, computers are dumb machines. They don't know nothing. You have to exactly tell them. Now, if I try to do A here, and you have used parse int to convert this A into an integer, it will blow up. And here is your blowing up. And how to read it? You have to kind of read it a little. You have to read it a little. The main problem is here. If you kind of think about it, look at your own programs. It is at line number 44. The problem is occurring with parse int. And why is it occurring with parse int? It's not too bad. It says it is occurring for A. Now, if we know a little bit of Java, we know what this error says. But if a user was using your code and he runs it, and of course, as I said, users will always make mistakes. They'll always try to break your code. So if the user tries to do this, he doesn't want to see all those red squigglies on his terminal. So we will learn how to make error messages beautifully, right? And the program has to close because your age cannot be A. And we'll make the program close in a little more dignified manner than it is doing right now. So we'll learn how to do that. Exception handling is in your course. Can start it in the first class or the second class. It will take a little time. It's not so tough, but it will take a little more time. Okay, maybe I can show it to you. Any questions on what we've done? So if I was using a float, I would use float.parse float. If I was using a double, I would use double.parse double. Whatever. Keep in mind that when you use the J option pane class and you use the show input dialog method, it returns a string. If you want to treat it as a string, good. If you want to treat it as a non-string, then it's your job to take it, convert it, and use it. Here I could have done without it because age, I'm not doing anything with age. I don't have to put it in an int. But as I said, you should know how to do it. Yes, Vivek.
What is the meaning of use of that line message equal to string.format?
To make, I could have taken this whole message here and kind of pasted it here. By putting it in a message variable, it can kind of just makes it neater. Instead of putting that whole big message, instead of that word message of that variable, I just made it, it's just easier.
Because I don't use that line as the output is same as you. That's why
No, it will be same. All you did was you took the whole thing and stuck it there, right? Which you can do. Formatting makes, this is hardly any formatting, but when there is a lot of formatting, you wouldn't like to write a whole message there. It would be just neater to put it in a string variable and show. I was just trying to show you that you can put it in a string variable and put the name of that string variable. There will be no difference. Yours will be a little untidy to read, mine will be. But again, maybe you will say, oh, that's an extra line. Makes sense, right? Depends. These programs are small. You're writing small programs. There's hardly anything. But when you want to go into the real world and write big applications, it's always a good idea to do jobs at the right place. Right. Okay. Now, another thing before I leave this application, because that's all I'll do in the application. Suppose I wanted to call a method from main. Right? I hope you know what calling means. A class can have any number of methods. I've only written main. We say the execution starts from the opening brackets of main and ends in main. That's perfectly fine. That's exactly how it is working. But suppose I have another method that I would like to call from main, just for the heck of it. So let's call that method, I'll call it display message, just. And it will come handy actually. I can actually start putting the option pane show message dialogues there. I can even do that. It will make it more better. But I'm trying to show you something and then show you what can be done. I'm going to call this method called display message, right? And it will say, where is this display message? It's another method. So put your Java doc comments, please. This method displays a message. And you know what? Let's kind of pass it a param also. Let me show you a few things. It's not bad to show a few things. And see, maybe Vivek, this will make more sense now. If I needed to pass this string to another method, it's in a variable. I just pass the variable. Makes it easier, right? So depends where you need it. So what am I passing it? A string variable. So what should be your params? Okay, help me write the signatures of this method. What is the name of the method? Good. How many parameters does it take? One. Thank you. What should we call this parameter? Anything we like, doesn't matter.
message.
You can call it message again. Don't get confused that it has to be called same. It can be anything. What else comes in front of a method? The specifier. Is it a public or a private method? If you're using it only inside the class, make it private. If it can be used outside, make it public. A method will always return a type. This method is not going to return anything. The return type is void. But I'm still missing something. Let's see if you can, if you know from your programming fundamentals. What is this of display message? So syntactically, I'm okay, but let's look here. What does it say? It says non-static method is being called from a static context. Do you follow what it is trying to say? Remember, when main was called, there was no object. Remember, main is a static method. JRE calls it. It's a static method. No object exists. You haven't created an object of it. Now you're trying to call a method called display message that is not static. It is not static. So it has to be called by the help of object name dot the method. But there is no object yet. You'll say, I can create an object and let's do it. We can do it. But the easier way in an application is this. What is the easier way? Make this method also static. So in an application, you will usually find all methods are static. Though there is another way of doing it. There is a roundabout way. I'll create an object of dialog box and I can show you, I'll show you how to do it. But this is the easier way. Now I don't see any red squigglies anywhere. It works fine. It works perfectly fine. But what does this method do? Let's do this. Let's pass it a message and all it does is it displays the message. Now what can I do? I can, so this method, oh, let's complete it. Okay, so how many parameters does it have? One. What did we call it? Message. What is it? The message to be printed. Or you can say, as Shane was asking me, you can say a string if you like, okay? But it's not compulsory. You could have called it anything you like. There is no connection between how it is being called and what. It's a standalone. When you write methods, don't think about how will it be called. Think about what is the job of my method, right? So what's the job of your method? This method displays a message on the screen using the J option class. That's all it does. So, okay, so give it a name. Give it a return type, give it a parameter. It will need one parameter because it is displaying a message, and give the code. Don't worry about how it will be called. The only thing that you have to know is how will it be called. It has to be passed a string. That's all. Right? So what did I call it here? Doesn't matter. I could have called it Anju here, though of course I won't because that's not a good parameter name at all. Right? So this is called a parameter. The actual value with which you call it is called argument. Okay, so now I won't display it here. I'll just call it here. Now maybe Vivek's question makes more sense. He said, "Is it necessary?" Oh, sorry. So now he says, "Why did you put this in a variable?" Now it's necessary, right? Now it becomes necessary. And can you do something else also? You've shown it before also. Now this one is a little different. You had welcome and you had J option pane and information pane. That's okay. But suppose I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to say welcome name, or I wanted to say, what will I do? I'll do the same thing here. So I'll go message is equal to, I'll take this welcome name from here. Just to show you guys, just to show you. I'll put it here. I'm not doing any formatting here. I can even do it this way, right? I won't show the J option pane here. I'll again call the display message method with message. So your message will show, except the difference is it won't show that, it won't show a different title. But you can always send the title also. Because if different message boxes have different titles, you can always pass the title as your setting parameter. That's all that can be done. You can pass all these parameters. But what have I done? I've said, this is a method that will print messages for me. So I don't write J option pane, J option pane, J option pane 10 times in my code. I put it in a method, and that's what is the use of a method. A method does a job. And then you invoke it or call it as many times as you like from as many places as you like. If I wanted to change something, I'll say, now can you do this? I don't want to say message, but I also want to show a title bar always. And I want to show an icon. All you have to do is make a change here. You'll say comma, you will put whatever you want to say, message or something or whatever. But if the titles are different, then you'll also have to pass the title here. So it depends how you're calling it. But see, I've kind of put the common code. The common code was not so common because it had different parameters, but the purpose was common. What was the purpose? To display a message. So create a method. So anytime you see that you need a job to be repeated a number of times, put that job into a method. Make a method body. Give it a signature. Think, what will it take? What will it return? What parameters does it need? Think, write its code, and then call it from wherever required. So you know how to write methods also. Okay, these are called helper methods. These are called helper methods. Yes.
So in that one line where for the display message method, where we're string a message, would that be either as one parameter or two?
Which one? This one? It only takes one parameter of type string. It takes one parameter of type string. That string is a string. It could have whatever it is. It's a string variable.
Yeah. Also on line 44, I have this error that says variable message cannot have been initialized. But
So did you? It's not an error. It's a warning. Do you have a variable called message declared here as a string?
Yes.
Okay, so then it could be a warning maybe. Did you initialize it with something?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so maybe that's what you're missing. That's what it is trying to say. That's you're missing. You didn't initialize it. Okay?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, you didn't put something into it. So remember, it's an object. The message was created, but it doesn't have anything. You didn't initialize it to anything. Though the object got created, you never do news with string. Just because strings are so commonly used in Java that Java allowed you to use string variables without saying is equal to new. So they are not null, they get created. But there is nothing inside it. So therefore it is not initialized and therefore it gives you an error. So this should still work. Let's try it. It will work the same way. You won't see the difference, but the code is different. The code is more organized. So this welcome Anju, the method is being called. I'm sure I haven't tried it, but I'm sure there will be a debug. There it is. You can always run your code in debug mode. It will tell you on which line am I. And that way, if you have problems, you can always kind of figure out. I'll try. I haven't done it in NetBeans. I've told you, NetBeans is new to me. I'm learning it as I'm going on. I've only used it for a couple of months. I'll get better. So the program runs the same way, but it is more organized now. You have put your code in a method. That method is doing a simple job of just displaying a message. And I've only passed it a message, a string. I could pass it a title. You can still write the same methods, but you can give it different parameters. Sometimes methods are not required. Don't overkill. Don't say, oh, everything has to be method. Don't overkill. Please think intelligently. Okay, so it's up to you. You can't make everything a method and say, oh, everything is a method. She likes methods. She'll give us marks. That's not the case. Think intelligently. I'm just trying to show you or revive back what you did in your programming fundamentals, so that you know what a method is, right? That takes care of what I wanted to do in my first lesson. So I've introduced you to JOption pane class. We have talked about static methods. We know how to use them. We have talked about constants. We know how to use them. And we've kind of reiterated your scanner class. So hopefully things are okay. Are we all okay with what we did? You don't have to memorize anything. Please don't memorize code. That's not how you learn code. You try different things out. You practice, and that's how you learn code. You don't have to memorize anything, please. You'll never be successful. You don't memorize code. Because if the question changes, then what will you do? Right? But if you're trying to say, I'm going to memorize the names of my classes and methods, and that's how you work and how your brain works, up to you. But you don't memorize code, right? I'll never ask you for the same code. Concepts, you understand concepts. Yes. Yeah, sure. Right. So we'll take a break here. We have 20 minutes. Please have your lunch, and so will I. And then we'll start writing the first class. I don't know how much of you did you do. Did you learn how to write your own classes in programming fundamentals?
Yeah.
Okay. How many?
So,
How many weeks? Last couple of weeks?
Object-oriented stuff, we
Yeah.
did like a week or two.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll reiterate that. We'll start with small so that you can start again, and then we'll go to bigger. Okay, we'll take a break of 20 minutes, come back and have Yes.
Let's have an error here. So
What
there's
is it saying? Okay. Oh, semicolon. You don't need the semicolon. That's it. Remove the semicolon. There.
Tyra.
Spell.
Tyra. Tyrell.
T-Y-R-E-O-O.
LL.
L. Tyrell. Okay. Okay. Where do you come from, Tyrell?
I was born here.
You were born here. Okay. Name is different, right?
Yeah.
Your parents are from somewhere
Yeah,
different.
Jamaica.
Ah, okay, okay. Names are always different. My name is not Canadian. Yes.
Basically, I took programming fundamentals twice. The second time, the mathematics.
Okay, guys, ready? Okay, so hopefully this is okay. Go through it once more, whatever, and if you're not comfortable with something, if you have any questions, ask. Okay, so that's done in kind of introducing the J option pane class. It's just an introduction. There are so many methods there. There are so many ways you can use it and whatever, and kind of little talking about helper methods and so on. So now I'm going to start a new project, and we are going to write a very small class today. Something that will kind of, again, help you get back to understanding what classes are, right? And hopefully when these two are done, what I have to do now and what we've finished, you should be okay for your first in-class assignment next week, hopefully, right? Now I am short of time, and I have time is a big scarcity for me. I have to kind of cover a lot of things from the previous course also, but I'll still try to give you some time in class so that you get the hang of it, and then maybe complete it an hour after class or something. We'll see how it goes, okay? Okay, so we'll go file, new project. It's a Java. No, we have to write a Java. We don't want a main in here, but we'll write classes and then say next. Oh, okay, right. And what would we like to call it? Whatever you got. Okay, I'll call it calculator. I'm going to create a small, simple calculator. Very simple, really simple calculator.
And it's a regular Java application.
Yes, Java application. And we don't want the main class in here because I'm going to write a class definition. Okay. I didn't find anything else, so I went with the application. So I don't want a main class in there. The main. And we'll say finish.
Okay, so no main class.
No main method, sorry.
Here's a little,
Wait, so we create a main class for it?
Main is a method. We don't want a method inside it.
there's a little checkbox that says create main class or main method.
Oh, didn't I give it a package name?
So uncheck the main class.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's what it was saying. Main class and not main method is what it said.
Yeah, that's what
Oh, okay.
it's saying.
So let's delete this. So kind of okay. Okay, yes. Also delete resources. Okay. Okay. Let me be a little more. Is there a Java class only? No. There is a class library. No. Project. No. Okay. So next. Project name calculator.
COMP1008-S2017 calculator.
Okay. So let's browse and let's put it. This is Tuesday, right? Tuesday. And open. And use dedicated folder for string libraries. Create main class. Okay.
I'll keep mine in the D folder for NetBeans projects as usual. So wait, do I need to create a main class for this?
Yeah, the main, it was not a main method, it was a main class, it said. Main class means it will just create a class definition. Otherwise, you have to do everything yourself, which can be done.
Okay, thank you. So create main class.
Yes. So what happens with the main class is, see, it creates a class called calculator.java. That's what it does on its own. It creates a default package by the name, and it creates a class by that name. So if you don't like it, I don't like the way they name it, but maybe I'll try doing it before I'll try to do it myself first, and then you can always rename packages and you can always rename classes. what NetBeans is doing is it has given the project name also to the package name, and it has given the project name also to the class name. That's what it does. Yes.
Well, I tried renaming some project things in the past, but they've always come up most creative errors, and I have lost things from all of the courses I've used as well, program fundamentals.
I don't know. I haven't done it in NetBeans, but in Eclipse it's as easy as refactor rename. I haven't tried it, so I won't try it now and waste my time and your time. But I'll kind of work around it and see, and then I'll answer your question. Okay.
So the point is, I got S1 calculator.java creators.
Okay. So let's put our comments. Okay. So now what am I trying to do? First, let's understand, and then we'll go ahead. Now I'm going to write a class definition, not a Java application, a class definition first of a calculator. All of us know what calculators are. We all use it in our daily lives. We all know. So therefore, I'll try to pick up examples of things you've seen so that you can kind of relate to them. Okay. Okay. So we are now going to build a class called calculator, and this an object of this class will be capable of working with two numbers at a time. You only work with two numbers. You can do more, but at a time, if I say 2 plus 6 plus 8, the 2 plus 6 is added, and then 8 is added to it. It's not, three numbers are not added together. It's always done in groups of 2. They're binary operators, right? So I'm going to create a calculator class, and as the name suggests, calculator, this definition should allow me to add two numbers, subtract two numbers, multiply two numbers, and divide two numbers. Simple calculator, nothing big at all. Of course, we can go whatever, but I'm keeping it very simple so that we can finish it. Plus, it will need some attributes or fields. So let's pick your brains a little. What are the attributes or the fields of a calculator class? Remember what attributes or fields are? How I look or the data I need. How I look may mean something if it was maybe car, but let's say what do I need to work with? Okay, so a calculator, what does a calculator work with?
Operators.
Okay, so we have operators, but those operators will be methods. Adding, subtraction, multiplication, division are operators, but those are methods that have to be implemented, right? How will I add? How will I subtract? How will I? But what does it work with? What does a calculator need? What's its input?
Numbers.
Numbers, right? How many at a time? How many at a time? Two. Several, but at a time only two can work. Then you can give it more and more, right? But remember, at a time when you go 2 plus 3, it kind of keeps 2 plus 3 in its head. And then when you go into 5, it does the into. So at a time, it's only working with two numbers. So we need two numbers, right? Now, these numbers can be ints or these numbers can be real. But to be on the generic side, it makes sense to go with floats or doubles because a calculator is not only limited to integers. So we'll go with float or we'll go with double because doubles are just bigger numbers because we can work with bigger. But keep in mind, even with the calculator, if you try to give too big a number, you'll see something like error comes up on the screen. You can't work with, why? Because what is a calculator? It's a machine. What does it have? Memory inside it. There is a size of the memory. You can only keep as much in it. So if you try, it says for the number, I can give you 4 bytes, for example. You can't save a number more than 4 bytes in it. So you add a 4-byte number and a maximum 4-byte number, the addition is not saved. It cannot do it because it cannot save the answer. Excuse me, and it comes up with error or something on your calculator, right? So what are the attributes of a calculator? Two numbers. What are the methods of the calculator? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. For a simple one. Of course, it could be much more, exponentiation and so on and so forth, right? We're not going there. We're just trying to understand a simple calculator. So we need two attributes or fields or two instance variables because every time a calculator is created, you go and buy one, another one somebody goes and buys another one. So there are many calculators in the world. They're all objects of this calculator whose blueprint has been created by me or you and whose objects are being created, right? Do we get the definition? So 2 attributes and 4 methods. That's what we need in this class. Ready to write that? Okay, so let's start. So this class simulates, we say simulates because remember, or defines or simulates, whatever you want to say. We're defining it. We're just defining or simulates a simple calculator that can add, subtract, multiply, or divide. You don't have to put it in separate lines. I'm kind of keeping it because of my font size, right? You can keep typing as you like in a line. So this is the description of your class. Remember, Java comments are necessary in my code. Okay, short description. Are you the author? Yes, and of course I don't want a name that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. More than one authors, comma, comma. Don't go authors. It still remains at author. It doesn't go authors when there are more than one. Don't change the reserved words, the annotations. What else we said we would put? We said we would put the version. And this is my first version. And hopefully I'll be successful, right? And we'll do a since. Now you can choose either. I mean, you don't have to do both. Since is usually, you can write the date. Is it 16th? Yes. May 16th. Right, so you can use either. You can put the date in the version if you like, but I would like to see the date somewhere, wherever. If you want to put it in version, go ahead. If you want to put it in since, that will also work. So Java doc comments at the header ready, right? Okay, now let's start. We don't want the main here because we are writing a definition. It's not a Java application I'm writing. And that's what I thought when it said of main class. And I said, oh, we don't need it. Class and not main method. Just Eclipse, right? Eclipse asks for main and you can remove it. That's what I was doing. Please see you write your comments here of your class calculator. Okay, let's start then. Now you've done inline comments. These are your instance variables of your class. So I would like to see this comments. Small comments are good to go. And I'll also show you how to create a class diagram because you haven't done that in your first course. We will learn how to create a class diagram today. Okay, so we kind of said we will need two numbers and we kind of said doubles will be good. You can go floats, but we'll try to go as big as we can. You can even go big decimal and so on. Those are classes. I'll stick with primitive data types today. Okay, now by the conventions of Java, it's not a rule, but conventions of Java say, and object-oriented programming says that all data must be hidden from the outside world and the methods must be made public. Why? So that the data cannot be changed by any Tom, Dick, and Harry. If it needs to be changed, there should be methods available to do it. It's like switching on a light. Switches, you have a interface on the front. If you want to switch it off or you want to switch it on, that's what you do. If you want to change its intensity, we can do that too. You don't go and kind of work with wires. You don't put wires together and so it's now on. Oh, I don't want to take off the wires. You don't do it. Nobody allows you to touch the data inside it. But there is an interface. There are methods that are available. So you can think of methods being as buttons. Oh, I want this. Or like your favorite vending machine, Cokes and chips, right? You go there, you need something, you click. You can't open the door without keeping money and just put your hand in and get it. No, an interface. So that's your data inside, which is hidden. Like you can see it, but you can't touch it. You know what I mean? You have to put in money, you have to select something, and then comes whatever you need, your Coke or chips or whatever you're fond of. So that's what a class is. A class is said to be a definition of how I look and what can I do. So with what do I work and what are my buttons? Okay. So what are my attributes? What are my methods? Make sense? And since data has to be hidden from the outside world, otherwise everybody would tamper with data. And then where is the state of your object? No state. The object will be in different states at different times, which can be possible from the outside world. If somebody wants to change it, only somebody has authority to change it. The person who comes fills in the vending machine. When the Coke is done, he'll fill in more Coke. You can do that. You can change the place of Coke to Fanta, Fanta to Coke. You can do that. I'm saying Fanta, it's from India, right? Whatever your orange drink is here, right? It is Fanta. Okay, there's Fanta here too, right? So you can do it. You can't open the door and shift. I mean, just do whatever you want, because if somebody wants Coke and you have put Fanta in the Coke, that's what it can't happen. So you have to keep data private, and that's the whole concept. So you don't have to, but that's what object-oriented programming says. So data will be private. So the specifier says my data will be private. Classes are public, because if classes are not public, how will somebody use it? What's the sense of writing a private class if nobody can use it? So classes are public, data is private. Yes.
If classes are pretty much always public, why is it just default like that? Why do we have to put it in public class?
I think if you don't write it by default, it is public in Java. I think so, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think it is, right? But I'm saying classes must never be made private is what I'm trying to say, right? But I don't think you have to put the word public by default. By default, if you don't say an access specifier, at least in Java, they are taken to be public. I think I'm right? C# was a little different. Let me not talk about it. I keep confusing it. Okay, so what are we doing? Oh, the type. Then comes the type. And then comes your variable. You can call it number 1 if you like. You can call it number 1 as a digit, but give it a good name, right? Now, usually this is not how it is written in Java, though I need 2 numbers. I could say comma and number 2 here, but you will see that in Java, 1 instance variable per line, not a rule, just a convention. Not even a convention. I shouldn't say a convention too, because conventions are also almost followed like rules in Java. So it's just a preference.
So earlier in the previous project, you did write the strings name.
Yeah, I did. So it's not a rule. It's not even a convention. It's just a preference, I should say. But remember, there I was writing the main method. That was not a class definition as per se. That was an application. So there things are different. In a class definition, so I could have, but that was declaring some local variables. These are instance variables, and we are talking about a definition of a class. So that's another thing. But this is how you will usually find it when you read code. 1 instance variable per line. And these are called instance variables. Why? Because when you create an instance of this class called calculator, every object will have 2 boxes inside it called number 1 and number 2. Right? So that's the data that belongs to every individual object. If I wanted to declare a constant, then that constant, and I'll declare it as if it is a constant, it is still inside each object. But if it is a class constant, then it sits at 1 memory location and all the objects share it, right? So that's the difference between a class constant and a normal constant. So my instance variables are done. Now, will I need to save my answers somewhere? No, my methods will return it. I'll call it, I'll switch the button, out comes the Coke, right? I put it on, up comes the light. So I don't have to save my answers everywhere. So don't create instance variables that don't make sense, because they're not kind of permanent data of your object. Number 1 and number 2 are always required by your calculator. But once it calculates your result, it doesn't keep result 1 for the next run. I mean, it's kind of useless. It's just a temporary variable. So don't make it an instance variable. So when you think about instance variables, please try to remember try to think of what really belongs to the class, to the object, not something that you will need temporarily to work with the object. So I'm not going to create 4 result variables in which I'll keep answer of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. I don't need to. Okay, so I'm not creating that as instance variable. Now let's create our methods. The first important method of any class is its constructor, because without a constructor, you can never create objects. Okay, so let's start writing our Java doc comments. All methods will have Java doc comment. Okay, so this constructor. Now, just for the heck of it, so that again, kind of a little bit of revision, I'll create 2 constructors. Now, by default, if you do not create any constructors in a class, there is a default constructor automatically created for a class that will initialize your to default values. So you can call that constructor, it will create an object, and all your instance variables will be given default initial values. And those initial default values are zeros for the numbers, all objects to null. That's the initialization. Okay. So if you don't write any constructor, I can still create a calculator object. What will happen? A calculator object gets created. It gets 2 data items inside it, or 2 instance variables, 2 boxes. One is called number 1, one is called number 2, and the value inside them, because they are data types are double, so they are value boxes, the values inside them are 0. And that's fine too. If that's how you want to start working, that's fine too. Right? But then if I want to change those numbers, I will need some methods, because I don't want to work with 0, 0 all the time. That's not what a calculator works with, but it's there and it will work. There's nothing wrong in it and it will work. Let's do it one by one then. Let's not create a calculator constructor for now. Just so that you can see it works. No constructor for now, right? Okay, what were the 4 methods we said our class would have?
Addition, subtraction, subtraction,
multiplication and division. Two numbers. That's what this method does, right? Okay, so will it take any parameters?
Number one and number two,
But are those parameters?
are they?
Are they parameters to the method, or they are already inside the object? They're already inside the object. They are instance variables.
All I take input.
So by the set method,
Pardon?
by the set method, we'll write a set method to set them,
I think so.
right? But here, this method just takes the two numbers and returns it. Okay, so let's say this method returns the sum of the two methods, doesn't take any parameters, but returns. Okay, so let's write it. That's how you write Java doc comments at return. You're seeing at return for the first time. There is only one at return in a Java doc comment because there is only one value a method can return. Okay, okay, let's write the signature. Methods are usually public. As data is private, methods are usually public. A method will return a value, maybe or maybe not. For us, yes, because it's going to add two numbers. It has a name, and it may or may not have parameters. What does it do? The job of this method is simply to return the two numbers that it has and give it back to the user. Oops, sorry about the real. There, that's all it does. Simple. That's its job. As soon as you go plus, as soon as you hit a button called add numbers, so kind of think of this button called add numbers, right? So if you can kind of see it, so I'm trying to create a calculator. I'll draw a class diagram also, but if you kind of, it has 4 buttons on it. Add numbers, the name of your methods, okay? Subtract numbers, multiply numbers, and divide numbers. And then inside it, it has its data, number 1. That's your calculator. If I was to draw a kind of a GUI of it. Now a class diagram in Java is a diagrammatic representation of a class. So let me do it side by side. Here comes the name of the class, box number 1. This is called a class diagram, and it is using the language called UML, Unified Modeling Language. It's not a language, it's a diagrammatical language, graphical language, okay? Then comes the second box, in which will be the name of your variables and whether they are private or public. So private with a minus sign. There could be variation, guys. This is the one I use. And then it's, oops, then it's like. If you look online, some may not have the minus and the pluses, some may not have the type. We will follow this notation in class. I would like to create my diagrams completely. There is another variable called number 2. So here are your name, that's the name of your class. Here are your instance variables. Box number 2. And it's also of type double. So please notice the colon, please notice the plus minus, please notice the name. So if I gave you this class diagram, you can quickly code it for me. Okay, that's the use of class diagrams. We all understand that. Then I'm going to write 4 methods. I'm leaving some space because we'll have constructors and so on. And maybe a diagram will grow bigger also, I don't know. But at least we have said we will write 4 methods. Right? We will write a method called add numbers. Plus stands for public. It takes 2 parameters, both, it doesn't take any parameters, sorry. And the return type is done. That's how you define a method signature. So you write all your 4 methods one by one. Sequence doesn't matter, but it says these are my methods. So block number 3 is methods. That's a class diagram. That's what a class diagram is. Name of the class, instance variables of the class, methods of the class. Now,
Part of the methods.
Sorry?
Is the constructor count?
Yes, constructor is a special method. Okay?
So it's not its own section.
No, it will come in the 3rd section. All methods in the 3rd section. Only variables in the 2nd section. Only instance variables, not local variables or anything. Only instance variables. So if I give you a class diagram and I say write the class for it, you will look at one line at a time and you will kind of convert it into code. Okay? Okay, now so we'll do add numbers. Please copy and paste if you like, though it's not a good habit at all. Okay, and let's go one by one. So after the add numbers, I'm going to write returns the difference. Now, you'll say, do I subtract number 2 from number 1? Do I subtract number 1 from number 2? Or are you asking for the positive difference? For now, don't even talk about it. Let's just say number 1 minus number 2. So call it subtract, change its comments, call it subtract numbers. Of course, we can change many things. We are just starting, guys. We're just starting, and girls, of course, and return number 1 minus number 2. You could have done number 2 minus number 1. Usually you go A minus B is how I'm thinking, right? You could go B minus A, or you could say, oh, subtract the smaller number from the larger number. You could check which is smaller, which is bigger. I'll always return the difference, the positive difference. But calculators don't usually do that. Calculators will just subtract. 5 minus 2 is a 3, and 2 minus 5 is a minus 3. Okay, right? So that's subtract. What about the third one? The product. Let's call it multiply. Notice the return types are all double. We could make better. We could go big or whatever. And let's multiply the two numbers. Oh, the sum, the difference, the product. Please see you change your return statement also. And returns the, so quotient is what we call it. The operation is called division, and what you get as the result is called the quotient. And since it is doing a double, it is doing a real division, your answer quotient is real. If you wanted to get the remainder and so on, then the process would be different, right? When you divide a real number by a real number, you get a real number. You have to be careful. When you divide an integer by an integer, you get an integer. The real part is gone. So I'm writing a calculator that can work with doubles, and I'm safe. I don't have to think about these things. And what will you do? We'll call it yes. Go ahead with your question.
Yes. Where do we place the methods, and why do we type with the commas?
Commas?
The lines, the quotations. Yeah, I'm still trying to find the perfect place to do the return add thing.
Okay, we start with the class definition with an opening bracket,
Yes.
and everything comes inside the class definition before the closing bracket.
Okay, so after the bracket, double number 2. Okay, so
Here come all your methods, and I've kind of made 4 methods: add numbers, subtract numbers, multiply numbers, and divide numbers.
okay, so I just need to take a quick look at subtract and multiply.
They're the same. One has a plus, one has a minus, one has a multiplication, and one has a division. It's just using 4 different operators. It does the same. It does subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division. Right? 4 methods are ready?
Okay, so subtract is the difference of the two numbers?
Yes. Multiply is the product, and quotient is the division. Okay, now, looks okay, but I'm missing one very important thing. Can you think about it? I can only work with zeros, nothing else. There is no way I can change a number. That's not how a calculator works. So the data is private. Nobody can change it, but the programmer decides what to give as buttons on the front end so that if data needs to be changed, how to change. So you'll say you're back to like, here you're trying to hide data and here you're trying to give buttons. But yes, but that's if I don't want to, I won't. So you'll say, let's make it public and not even think about it. Anybody can change it. You can just change it from wherever. Just put it in your hand and change it. But that's not how object-oriented programs are written. The concept of object-oriented programming is hide your data and show your methods. Right? That's the concept. There are 2 strong opinions where some programmers say data must be private, and there are others who say doesn't make sense. Let's make it public. So these 2 will always fight, and it will go on. I'll stick to the private ones. Right? To me, it makes sense when you start doing inheritance and so on. Why make something public when you don't have to make it public? Public means not only people who want to use the calculator, people who want to not use the calculator can also change it. Doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, why? So I'm with the other side. I'm with saying data is private and methods are public. So now we need 2 methods. Why 2? One if I want to change only one number. One if I want to change the second number. Those are the two methods I will need. Or maybe I want to change them together. Kind of go one button and I can change both of them. So there are options. You decide as a programmer what kind of interface will you give to your user. So I'm going to give this interface. I will allow the user to change the numbers, sets or initialize or change, whatever you want to call it. Right? So definitely if it is going to change the number, it's going to ask for it. That means a param is needed. Right? So what is your new value? Whatever you would like to call it, I'm going to call it number 1 again. And I'll show you something else also. The param is also called number 1. It's a double, of course. You can write a double if you like. And notice how I kind of say first number and second number here. Because remember, the outside world cannot see what you call them. Number 1 and number 2 are good names, but don't use variable names in your comments. Comments are meant for the general public. You know what I mean? Write them in English. That makes sense. So notice how I've said this method changes the first number I've said. I say number 1, a double to set or change the first number. I'm not saying number 1. Don't use variable names in your comments because the outside world cannot see your variables. So if they cannot see what is this number 1? What is she calling number 1? Suppose you say I'll call it N1, though it's not a good name, but what is N1? So these comments are for the user. The user should be told comments in English. Okay? So just write normal English, no variable names, nothing. As if you were talking to somebody and trying to explain stuff. Will it return anything? No, it just sets it. So no return. Okay, so let's write it. It's a public method. Does not return anything. Is called set number 1. Number 1 takes a parameter of type double, which I've called number 1 also, just to confuse you. So there is a local parameter. This is local variable to this method. Anything that comes in the parameter list or comes in the opening and closing is local to it. Okay. I wish it could do it. Okay, so what do? If there is any error checking to be done, your numbers can only lie between 1 and 10. Age can only be positive. Salary cannot be greater than 2,000. Salary, you can only work 46 hours a day. There are only, if you want to do some validation, you will do it here. This is where you would do your validation. But if no validation is required, then you will take the number 1 and assign it the number 1. And here is the confusion. Who is who? Is this number 1 the local parameter or is this one the local parameter? So one way would be to give it a different name here and then there will be no confusion. But what is the job of the set method? The set if you do this, there is no syntax error. But what does it do? What does Java do? It looks for number 1 and starts looking. Where are you? Where are you? It finds one right here, closest to it. It says, oh, you're talking about the local variable. That's what it does. It doesn't. So it starts to search this way. And at the end, we'll go to the instance variables. Doesn't matter whether you wrote them at the end or remember, this is a capsule. It doesn't matter whether you write your instance variables at the top, at the bottom of your code, in middle of your code, really doesn't matter. It's like a capsule. You can shake it and it's all inside it. This concept is called encapsulation in object-oriented programming. Your data and your methods are encapsulated inside a class definition. So it doesn't matter how you write them. Sequence is not important. You could write method 1, variable, instance variable 1, method 2, instance variable 2. There is no concept of sequence in a class definition. They're all encapsulated inside like a capsule, right? The capsule that you eat sometimes. That's why it's called encapsulation. So encapsulation and data hiding, you've already looked at 2 concepts of object-oriented programming. So it's not necessary to put your instance variables at the top of the definition. You can put them anywhere you like. But when it starts to look, it will look this way. It's searching for number 1 and it will say, okay, let me look. And it stops right here. It finds one right here, locally defined. If there was another one here, it will stop inside the, so it kind of goes this way looking for it. So it says, oh, you will take the input and put it in the same box, like useless. What do you want to do? You want to take input from the user and put it where? In that box called number 1, the instance variable. Now both have the same name. So how will you tell the compiler who's who? Please use the reserved word. this with the instance variable. This is a reserved word which stands for the current object. This is a reserved word stands for the current object. You are saying current object, take your number 1 and assign to it the number 1 given by the user through the parameter of the method. Make sense? Now your question.
Sorry, I was just trying to understand what that window you highlighted on number 1 was. Well, mine was different because, never mind.
Okay, so now do you understand the difference between the two? So this number 1 on the right hand side is the local variable number 1, the parameter that is coming in, the actual value that is coming in. And when you use this with a variable, you can use it with a variable even if there is no ambiguity. I mean, it has a unique name, you can still use it. But this represents the current object. Okay, so when the object is created and you go and click on this button set number 1, this number 1 is talking about the number 1 inside the object. And what are you giving it? The value that you are given through the button. Kind of through the button. We don't put value through the button, but that's what we're saying. Through the button. Make sense? Yes.
So the one on the right is the local variable?
The one on the right is the local variable, this one.
Right. And the
Left one is the instance variable.
and the left one is the instance variable from above.
Yes.
But we use this dot in order to
Differentiate between the two because you will be confused yourself otherwise, right? So the compiler says, if you don't tell me, I'll just take the local one. So now let's take the second number. Please copy and paste this code. Let's change the, write a method for changing the second number. Let's call it set number 2. Let's call it, give it a different name. You can give it the same name, but remember overloading says parameters must be different and that's not what we want anyway. We're not writing methods here. There should be a way of formatting code, right? To all make it neat. Somewhere in edit. Where do you see it? Okay, so it must be some, oh, there it is. Fix code, no, fix imports. Alt Shift and F. Oh, there it is, first one. Alt Shift and F. Oh, same as Eclipse. Alt Shift and F. Alt Shift and F. So please see that your code is neat to read. It's very important that we read code, okay? And it's not a big thing. All you have to do is Alt Shift and F. Keep in mind. Okay, so are the two methods clear? Both make sense? The first number will allow you to change the first number. The second will allow you to change the second number. If you want, nobody stops you. If you want, you can write a combined method that changes both the numbers together. So you're giving 2 inputs and changing both the numbers. Okay, that can be done too. It's up to you. Usually it won't be. There is usually a set for every instance variable if the application programmer feels it necessary. But you could always say set numbers and pass 2 parameters and change both numbers. Can be done. Not a big deal. Do you want to try? Yes.
It looks like we forgot to change number 1 to number 2 in the param statement on 29.
Thank you.
Brackets in 31.
And where?
Brackets in 31. So
Thank you. Though we could have called it what they were. We could have left it at number one here, but then I would have to, I mean, you're just confusing things. That's it. You could use the same name throughout your code as long as it does not conflict. You have to understand your things. But if this things makes clear, it's much clearer in your mind, you can go this route. Okay, so if you wanted to write a method just for the heck of it, for practice. Suppose I wanted to change both the numbers, the first and the second number. It's like one button doing 2 jobs, kind of, right? So you will have 2 params because you will need 2 params, right? You will ask 2 things from the user. One, what's your number 1 and what's your number 2? So look at this new method that I'm writing. Usually the add param will kind of match what you do here. The sequence, you don't have to, but you know what? If you're not organized, life would be a little difficult, right? So this method changes the first and the second number, both of them. So what do? I take 2 of those and I do 2 jobs. This is not usually the practice. One set does 1 job kind of stuff. But you know what? Practice depends on your application, what application you're writing. Are we okay? Of what I've done? I've written another method. Now, since these are private methods, you will say, oh, I input the number, but I forget what it is. I did input it. You do that many a times. You input something and you forget what it is. So if you want to see the number in the box, remember it's private. You can't see it till you ask for seeing it. You will see that you have get methods. I'm sure somewhere NetBeans must have give me gets and sets automatically. Do they?
Are you changing the method name?
Yes, please. Thank you. It didn't complain. Why? Because it had different parameters. It became overloaded method. So I'll call it set numbers. It didn't complain. Why? Because it had two parameters and the method became overloaded. That's not what I wanted to do. Is there a way in NetBeans, guys, where you can put a template of with empty gets and setters?
When we go to refactor,
In file?
refactor, no,
Oh, in edit.
refactor, after source,
Oh, the main menu refactor. Okay, thank you.
encapsulate field
Encapsulate
down last four.
1, 2, 3. Encapsulate fields. Okay. What will it do?
And now it's
Ah, okay. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to create getters. Okay. Just for the and say refactor. Okay. Odd name, but anyway. Okay. So what does refact? Where did it put it? There it is at the end. It could put anywhere. I was trying to put it with my getters. So thank you, Amandeep, right?
The checkbox highlighted as used accessors, even when viewing.
No, I didn't. Setters. I've already written setters. So I didn't do setters. I did only accessors. So look, where were we here? So notice it has field, two fields. Then it says create getters and then it says create setters. So if I wanted to create getters and setters, which usually I will for my variables, I can just check all four of them, or you can do a select all and then do it. It says, okay, here, this is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Use accessors even when field is accessible. Okay, so it's saying even if it is public, it will still write a get method.
So that's good.
That's good. Our method, it's private anyway, so we have to create them.
Okay, so I'll do it then, refactor.
Let's cancel it. So notice, please fill up. What does this method do? Please notice my comment. I'm not using variable names anywhere. I use param names because you can see them right here. With the signature of the method, you can see in Java also, in your Java API also, you can see the names right here. So if I go here, it's talking about this another string. The name is right here. So you can see it. That's why I use param names. But I don't use any other names in my code. I don't say return number 1. I say return the first number. Nobody knows what number 1 is. Okay, so don't use your variable names anywhere, your instance variable names anywhere. Okay, having said that, let's go. So this is going to return number 1. So I won't say number 1 here. This is not how you say it. You say the first number. The user has no idea of the variable number. And what does this method do? So there is a big controversy on what's the sense of making your variables private if you're going to write getters and setters with it. But please keep in mind, you don't have to. You decide whether you want to give getters and setters. So it's not a compulsion, but like in most cases, it will be, right? This method returns the second number. And return. So please don't use, with the return, definitely don't use names like this. The user does not know what number 2 variable is. Though the name is so good. See, I'm keeping good names. As I said, your parents didn't call you ABC. We all have good names. It makes sense. But here we'll say the second number. There, makes sense? So 1 is a get number 1. Notice there is no params here. The get methods, also known as accessor methods, will not have any params. You're returning something. These methods give you something. Whereas the set methods are also called mutator methods. You change something, mutate something. So those are also called mutator methods. Set methods are called mutator, and like they will always have params. Why? Because you're going to change the value. Whereas get methods are called accessor methods, and you're getting something, so you'll never have params. Make sense? What will have params and what will not have params. So these are my 2 get methods. Now you can, if you like, you can return a string from here. Your first number is, and then show the value. It's up to you how you want to do your getters. It's entirely up to you. The use of setter methods is usually for validation of output. The use of get methods is to give the output in any format you like. And that's why they say it's implementation independent. I could give back a message, the first number is, and show the number, give back a string. It's not telling the user that it's a double number. It's not telling anything to the user except a message. And that's the use of setters and getters. Setters will validate your data and getters will return your answer in an implementation free format if you like. Here I'm just saying return the number and my return type is double. But I can do whatever I like. So if I now change my number 1 from double to float, I don't have to change this method at all if it was returning a string. I don't have to, because it says the first number is and it's just showing me the number, it's returning a string. That's the use of getters and setters. They are implementation independent, not the setter, the getter is implementation independent, and you can format your answer as you like. It's just to show the user. Remember, get is not doing anything, it's just showing the user the number. So it could return a string and it'd be as beautiful as that. Okay. Now, let me try to write another method here, which I'll explain. I'm going to write this method. I'm going to write its signatures first, just because it's a public method. It returns a string. It's called toString and takes no parameters. Now let me explain what is this toString method. The toString method belongs to the object class for your information. There is a toString method in the object class. The use of that toString method and why was it created in the object class from which every class inherits is the use of toString is saying that I will represent my object's data as a string. That's what is the use of the toString method. So if you use the toString method without defining it, it will work. Why? Because to whom does it belong? To the object class, and you have inherited it from there. So let me first show it to you what it will show you, and then we will change it. But if you want to change the toString method, inheritance in Java allows you to change the methods of its parent. You can change it yourself, but the signatures have exactly to match the signatures in the object class, and those are the signatures of the toString method. And the use of the toString, I hurt my arm today. I don't know what I did. And the use of the toString method is, and then I dance with it all the time in class, right? So the use of the toString method is to give a string representation of the object. That's why it's called toString, right? So I'll show you how to override it, but let me first show you how to use it without overriding it. So that means I'm going to use the one from the object class. So for now, just for now, I'm going to kind of remove it. Okay. Okay, my class is ready. Okay, so can you complete the class diagram? Add your set methods, add your get methods, and add your for methods. These many methods in my class. Just complete them. For example, let's take a parameter one so that you know. You go set, what did we call it? Set number 1 is what we called it, right? Was it taking any parameter? Yes, 1. So you just write its type is enough. Say double. Was it returning anything? No. So what do you write for its return type? 1. This is how you will write the signature of a method that takes parameters. So you write the parameters in brackets, 1, 2, 3, how many as you have. It's not necessary to give them names or anything, you just say their type. Double, comma, double. Oh, there was one with 2 doubles, right? So let's see, what was it called? Set numbers. Am I making sense to everybody? I heard 1, yes, there are 19 students in my class. Okay, and 1. There. See how I've written set numbers? It's a public method. The name of the method is set numbers. It takes 2 parameters, double, comma, double. Sequence. Just maintain the sequence. Here it doesn't matter, both are double. And it returns a void. This is your class diagram. Complete it for me.
I have to write the entire class diagram on paper again because I only did when I had enough room for the information before.
You can do it afterwards, but do you get the idea?
Sort of. I'm just trying to read.
Right. So again, there are different ways of, some people will not mention the plus or the minus. Some people will not show the parameter. Like there are varying forms. This is the form that I like because it's complete and gives you a complete picture of class definition. If I look, so if I give you a class diagram and I say create a class out of it, you should be able to do it. Or vice versa. I give you code and I say make the class diagram out of it, you should be able to do it. Make sense? Okay, so now our class is ready, not completely ready. I'll tell you how to put in constructors and so on, but I want to now test my class. So this is a definition, right?
So get numbers is voids, right? That's the word there. Get numbers double void.
a colon and the void. Void is the return type. Return type on the right hand side, and then method name on the left hand side. So the name of the method, its parameter list separated by commas, if any, colon, and the return type. That's how you will write a method signature. So the parameter list and the return type for each one of them. A public, if it's public, a plus; if it's private, a minus. Can methods be private? Yes, they can be. And for static also there is a symbol. I forget. I think you write a small s or something with it to say it is a static method or a static constant. I'll have to double check. It's been a while since I made class diagrams. Anyway, but I think I'm right. Okay. Are we okay? Let's test this class. So now, can this class be executed? Because it doesn't have a main. It's a definition, just a definition on paper, but I can compile it. So if you go to your run code, to your run button, and I see there is a compile file F9 here, you can compile it to see at least that you don't have any compilation errors. And I don't, because there were no red squigglies anywhere in my class code. So my class is ready, but that's all it is, a definition. That's not where it stops. There is where it begins. So you define your classes, right? Of course, as I said, we'll put constructors and so on, 130. Okay, let's try to use it. Now, in the same package, do a right click. I'm trying to follow Eclipse. Do a right click, go to new and go to a Java. There's only a class. Go to a Java class. Yes.
But that window's not popping out. You know, the one with the lines code thing.
This one?
Yeah.
You must have kind of put it to down. Just kind of find it somewhere and make it. Or maybe go to view and say if there is an output window. Show edited toolbar, like in.
There are output windows when we run the program.
There it is, window. Yeah, but it should come up, whether it's only a compilation window. So let's see, under the window, output. This is my output window, I'm hoping. Yep, it says output there, guys. So if it is not coming, go to window and click on output. That's how it will show if it is not showing. Okay, so now write the other class, please. In the same package, do a right click and say new Java class. And I'll call it test calculator, because I'm going to test my calculators. And guys, writing testers is a whole job in itself. I'll kind of write it roughly for you, but I'll give you a good copy of it. Okay, I'll give you a good copy of it. I'm expecting you to check each and every method of the class. Negative testing, positive testing, out of range, whatever. But here there's not much. They're just double, so we are okay. But test for invalid values, test for valid values, test for inside values, test for the corner values. 0 and 100 are allowed. -1 and 101 are not allowed. Like there's so many testing, and testing is a job in itself. Thank you, Shane. Right? So I've called it test calculator. It's going in the same project called calculator, and everything else looks okay. I have to pay more attention. I just kind of think it's fine just because I'm so used it in Eclipse. Okay, so it has come in the right package. In the right package, it has two classes have shown up. And in here, I'll have to write a main. I'm going to write an application. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Remove whatever this license header is. The package remains the same. What does this class do? Tests the calculator class. That's what it does, right? And author is okay. And your version number and your sins, whatever you like. Oh, what am I doing? Again, author. I wanted to do version. So it's not tab, it's a return to accept it. And then since May of 16th, 2017. Right? So for a tester class, there will be not much to write because this is a tester class. You know what I mean? Like there's not much to explain. Okay, so now inside the tester, this is a Java application I'm writing. I don't need constructors and so on. It's an application. So what do you need? Public, static, void, main. It didn't create it for me. That's strange. Why didn't it create it? Did I have to put some checkbox on in NetBeans? I don't know. That's why you can do in Eclipse. You can say Java application and it will automatically.
Then we
Yeah, from the new, yeah, but then it will.
Class it will give, that is tested now.
Yeah, but yeah. But if you want to do it in the same package, then you can go to new project. You know what I mean? Or is there a new file in there too? Oh, there is a new file. Ah, okay, okay. Thank you. Makes sense. So there I can say yes, has the main. Okay, thanks. Saves me some time. So I'll have to learn NetBeans from you guys, okay? As I do it, answer me if you've done NetBeans. It will help me to learn it. And I would like to do debug. I don't want to do it right now in front of like waste your time, but debug is a very powerful technique in any IDE. Debug kind of takes you, you can step into, you can step over, you can it kind of takes you line by line. And if something is not working properly, that's the place to go. Or if you want to learn how things are working, you can still go and say, oh, from here this method was called, it comes back here and so on. So that helps a lot. Okay, what do you want to do? We'll do very simple thing. We'll do it very simply. I want to create, and this is local variable to main. It's not an instance variable, guys. We don't talk instance variables and methods in an application. It's a tester. You know what I mean? It's not a definition. It's a tester. Therefore, I've called it test calculator. I'm going to calculate calculator 1, and I'm going to say new calculator. This proves to you, I don't have any red squiggly. It proves to you that there is a default calculator constructor in the calculator class. Java does it automatically, right? To prove that it exists, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show the two numbers. So cal1, you know what? I'm going to be very quick. So I'm not going to worry about any pretty things right now. I want to see the first number. What should I do? I want to see the first number of my calculator. How will I prove that my object is created? If I can see inside it and I say, what's your first number? And it tells me, that means it's there, right? This will prove that this has worked. How do I see the first number? What method, which button do I press to see the first number of my calculator? Come. You wrote that method right now. What was that method called to get the first number? Get first number. So call it. Invoke that method. With whom? Whose first number are you looking for? Cal1. Cal1, give me your first number. What was it called? Get number 1, I think. Yeah. Make sense? Is it making sense? I'm saying number 1, and I'm going to press the button called get number 1. Of whom? Of the object that I just created. If this works, it proves that the object got created. Right? Now show the second number. And we'll call the get number 2. Was it? Yeah. Number 1, number 2, we can say or first number or second number if that makes more sense, because remember these are just messages and should be as English-like and non-technical as, oh, wrong. Okay. I can format them, I can make them pretty. I'm not bothering right now. I'm just trying to prove that it works. Run it, guys. Run your main. Calculator wasn't, no main class is found. Okay. Control S. Okay, so is there some other way of running it? Run project, test project. Since there are two classes, you will have to say right click on it and run it. Is there a run here? Open, cut, copy, paste, run file. Okay. There it is. I thought it would automatically look for the class with main and run it. So maybe there are other ways. Anyway, there it is. Do you see the answer? Yes, Bradley.
I'm having trouble with line 14.
Line 14?
Yeah.
This one? What is it saying?
It says cannot find symbol class S1 subject calculator location class test.
Did you put it in the same package as you had your
Yes,
calculator?
Same package. With the first Java class we created a package, I named S17 calculator.
And what did you use here?
Hang on a second.
You have to use the same class name, okay? You have to use the same class name.
There we go. It was the.
So that means the number exists. That means the calculator exists. So by default, every Java program will have a constructor. Have we proven that? Yes.
Yeah, I just have to remember to fix the typos.
Right? So have we proven that? Yes. So if I wanted to write more than one, so suppose when I create the object, I want to put numbers into it. Can I do that? Yes, we can. But here, suppose can you change the numbers? Suppose I want to change the first number. How do I change it? Do you know the button by the help of which I can change it? What is the name of the method by the help of which I can change the first number? Thank you. Guys, speak, don't sleep. I could sleep too. Why doesn't it help me? Is it control space bar? Okay. It should automatically help me, right?
Sometimes it does if you do it at a certain speed.
Okay, so let's set it to 2, just because it's easy. Let's do the same thing for number 2.
It's only showing number 1. I don't know why it's only showing number 2.
Did you misspell it or did you miss it? Did you not copy it properly? Something has to be missing. Remember, there is no magic. It's all in your hands. I've changed my 2 numbers. I've made them 2 and 3. I'll look at it, Shane. Okay. Give me 1 minute. Let me complete this. And then show them again. There. Let's see. Do they change? Let's see if they change. Of course, I can see the answers and so on, but let's see if they change. Try again. Oh, this is really irritating. You have to go right click and run. No, there should be some way of making it a default or something, right?
If you run it again, just hit OK instead of cancel.
Oh, okay. I thought, no, I don't do OK. Oh, select them. Oh, okay.
Yeah, then it just-
Okay, thank you. So notice 0, 0 has changed to 2 and 3. Make sense?
Yeah, 2.0 and 3.0.
So I could change it. I'm using my methods. Do you want to see the answer of addition? Okay. Help me. I want to see the sum. What should I do here? Which button allows me, which method allows me to see the sum?
Addition.
What did you call it? Add numbers? I called it add numbers. Let's start giving marks for class participation, because otherwise I won't know whether you understand or not. You know what? I'm making a lot of effort, let me tell you, to repeat a few things from your first class. It may be boring to some, but if it is helping even 2 students, I'm okay. So can I see the sum? And you can do this for everything. Remember, you have a third one. What was it? Product. How will you see that? Which method do we need? Multiply. Thank you. I call them multiply numbers. Yes. Right. And notice the syntax of calling the methods. Name of the object dot name of the method. Control space bar. Oh, control space bar is also completing it. That's good to know. Right. And the fourth one. Quotient. And we called it divide numbers. Try to leave spaces between your after and before your operator. It makes it easy to read. It's not a compulsion at all, but it kind of makes it easy to read. Of course, I could have formatted it and so on, but as I said, the aim here is to kind of, there it is. Do you notice something in the quotient? Very untidy. I could, of course, make it neat and I can format it. String.f, sorry, printf, system.out printf can be done. Not a big deal at all. Are you aware of it? Yep. Seen it? We can format. Right? So now let's add a few things. I know we don't have time. We don't have more than 7 minutes, but let's try. Has it made sense? For students who knew, good. Students who kind of learned something out of it. How many of you learned something out of today's lesson? Not bad. I'm glad. I'm glad. That's good. So it's not repetition. It's not wasting anybody's time.
Yes, I'm here.
Right? You could have learned it in the first course. That's what I'm trying to reiterate. That's my question. That's why. Okay. So if it helped, I'm glad. I'm really glad. Okay. This is an extra thing I did. I will do a few things extra. Now let's go back to your class definition. How can you add a constructor to your class? There's nothing wrong in having a default constructor. But you know what? You could be lazy and say, first I constructed, then I set it. Couldn't it be easy if when I create it, I put values inside it? Why not? That's the use of the constructor. Therefore, it's called constructor. Constructs something, makes something. What does it make? Objects. And when you make objects, would you like to put some values inside it? Yes. So let's write our own constructor. Write it. Keep in mind, as soon as you write your own constructors, the default is gone. Then if you want the default also, you'll have to put it in yourself. Okay? Okay, so let's write this. So this constructor, or this method, you can say, this construct creates an object with initial values for the two numbers. So it will give some values. I'll put it on a second line so that you can see both of them. Go towards the left. Right? So this is what it does. It will create an object, but it will also initialize it. Okay, so you will need two params. Make sense? Take the first param. You can actually call it number 1 again. Doesn't really matter at all. To set the first number, or to initialize, or to whatever you would like to call. And I'll tell you another trick. Not trick, another way of good programming habit. Though it will change a little when we do inheritance. But for now, we are good. Will it return anything? Will the constructor return anything, guys? Does a constructor return anything? Nope, never. A constructor returns an object, but we say the return type is void. Of course, it creates an object. How will you write a constructor? Constructors are always public. Don't have a return type. Have the same name as the name of the constructor. And I said we'll take two parameters called number 1 and number 2. That's what I said. So the use of this constructor is that when you create, when you create the object, you can actually put the two numbers inside it. That's the use. So to the number 1 inside the object, you want to give this number 1 that you're providing. And to the number 2 inside the object, you want to give the number 2 you're providing. You could write your statements again. This dot number 1 gets number 1. This dot number 2 gets number 2. But we won't do it. Why? Because we already have a method doing it. Which method does it? The set method. Call it. Call it from here. Call it. A class can call each other's methods. Don't repeat code, guys. Never repeat code. For now, I'll tell you where you'll have to make a little difference, but never repeat code. You've already done this job in the set number 1 method. Why will you write the statement again? You could argue, I can copy and paste. No, copy and paste is not how it goes. How it goes is write it at one place and use it. And what will you do about the second one? And pass it, number. Now, this will take care of a few things. You're not repeating code. And 2, if any validation needs to be done, it is only done at one place. If things need to be changed, they're only done in the segment. Why will you do it? So this is how it will do. Now, for whatever reason you also want the default constructor, you will have to write it yourself again, guys. You will have to write it. So let's write it. So you want the default constructor for whatever reason. This, Control Z. Let's do something I did wrong. So I took the constructor. Please take the constructor. And
So for the public void, it's the same as the main public class title.
yes, a constructor always has the same name as the name of the class. That's a rule. That's a rule. Here is my empty constructor, guys. If you want, we don't have to. But if you want, because I said, if you don't initialize instance variables, they're automatically set to 0. So these two statements are kind of redundant. You don't need them. You can just leave it empty if you want. Why am I showing you this? For example, if you wanted to set them to 2 and 3 for whatever reason, you can do it in this default constructor. So if you say always when you switch on your calculator, number 1 will have 10, number 2 will have 20, I could say set number 1 to 10 and set number 2 to 20. So we don't need any params. There are no params. This is an empty constructor.
So we're not keeping both constructors, just one over the other.
You can use both constructors. I'm writing overloaded constructors. That is the use of overloaded constructors. So this will create, now, as soon as you code your own constructor, the default is gone. It's not available. If you don't write this and you try to run your application, it will give you a runtime error. So if you need it, you have to put it. If you don't need it, don't put it. Then you don't have to, but if you need it, you have to put it. It's not there by default anymore. If for whatever reason you don't have this one, let's comment it out. Just for a minute. Go to your tester. It should Control S, compile this. It should, why is it not saying it's not available? NetBeans is doing something. That's not good at all. No, guys, no, it's not. Java doesn't, you cannot, if you take out a constructor, if you write your own one, the default one is gone. Unless something has changed in Java 8. I don't remember. I'll have to double check. I'll take back my words then. My Java says you cannot. But seems like NetBeans is running. Either it is a feature of NetBeans or is it a feature that Java has changed, which I don't think so. But since things are running, nothing is magic. There has to be something somewhere. Some discrepancy, I'll clarify that. But my understanding is if you define your own constructor, the default is gone. It's gone. It's not available. So something is happening which is not what I'm saying. Anyway, that will be that. But here are your overloaded constructors. We will stop here because we don't have time. But next class, I'll try to show you just one more method, the toString method, which is good. Okay? And go through this, please. Please go through this and see what you understood, what you didn't understand, what would be good to know more and so on. And we'll try to complete this in the first half hour of next week. I can give a lot of time to it. First half hour so that you're ready for your first assignment. Okay, I'll do a few more things to it. I'll just leave the seat here because there's somebody waiting outside. So I have to leave I have an office hour now in my office if you want to come and see me, if it is important. If it is something small, come, right? Because there's another class and I have to leave the class for.
It's just giving me 0 as take information.
Okay, did you change it? Go to your tester. Okay, so you said call get number 1, get number 2, you set them. Okay, let's see your set methods then. Something is wrong in your set. Where is your set method? Set number 1. Go. Oh, here. The problem is right here. You are saying this number 1 is equal to get number 1. You're calling that method here. It gives you the number 0 and puts it in number 1. Okay, so here you have to say the number 1 of my object gets this number. Right? You're initializing it. Okay, that's the problem. Yes.
No error, but it doesn't run. No error.
No, there has to be something. Exception in main at calculator main caused by runtime uncompatible source code is already defined in class calculator. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's go to your calculator. Oh, this method is repeated, it says. Here something is wrong.
That's right.
Yeah, you're seeing there's an error here. Let me see, I don't know, go up. Do you have another set number 1? There it is, 2 of them. There is a set number 1 method, another set number 1 method. That's what it is saying, okay?